Welcome back to MythCraft, an epic role-playing saga. We're continuing our tutorial series here, so I'm joined as always by Cody and by our friend Mal, another member of the new MythCraft the podcast. So Cody, can you introduce yourself again in case people haven't seen you yet?
Yeah, for you guys just tuning into this video, I'm Cody. You probably know me from over at the Homebrew Network. I play all kinds of characters over there, and over here in the MythCraft pod, I'm gonna be playing Old Man Hollow.
Awesome. And Mal, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mal. You do not know me from the Homebrew Network yet, but hopefully soon you will if you listen to MythCraft the podcast, where I will be playing Thistle Featherfoot.
Amazing. And as always, I am Nathan. I'm the lead game designer for MythCraft. I am Hildegard in MythCraft the podcast. I was Miraz the Magnificent and Atreides, a god among mortals, in Power Word Fail with Cody as the dungeon master for that. And I also DM the Sanity Damage live show at the Homebrew Network. So, yeah, let's dive in on this next MythCraft tutorial video. Today we're going to look at each of the 13 classes in MythCraft. We're not going to do deep dives on any of them, but I do want to just kind of touch on each one at least and kind of explain what makes them unique and what kind of playstyles might appeal to you. So before I get into the specifics on each of the different classes, I'd like to talk over a couple kind of top level details. The first is that classless builds are absolutely a thing in MythCraft. You can choose just not to take a class. You could just be like an adventurer and pick your own kind of a la carte talents as you level up. If you want information about leveling up or character creation, we've got those videos that you can watch previously in this series. And another reminder on that note, you can't take a class until at least level 2. So at level 1, you start out just as a generic adventurer, and then you can continue down that route, or you can enter into like a magic source with your talents, or you can enter into a class, which gives you a specific repertoire of abilities. The components of any class include the class entry talent, which is that first talent that you would take that gives you kind of a base set of abilities. Some of them also give you access to a magic source. So if you're planning on going the casting route, there are going to be some classes that pair very well with that. And otherwise, the class entry talent just sets you up for success within that or within that class. There will be some like talents you take later on that improve certain features you might get in your class entry. There are different types of class tracks. So we use the terminology stack to refer to a group of tracks, and the term track to refer to like a line or a branch of related talents. So skill trees in certain video games, it's that same kind of concept. We've got linear tracks that are just, you take one, then the next, then the next as you level up. Each time you level up, you have the choice of continuing that or going back and taking something else if you want to multi-class or if you want to take like a generic specialization talent. We've got split tracks, which are like two separate linear tracks that are usually incompatible with one another. The archery track of the warrior is a good example of that. You either choose to be like a sharpshooter really focused on one thing, or you choose to be like Overwatch support, helping your allies kind of figure out what's going on. We've got menu tracks, which are like your potion makers, your aura, like the zealot aura is an example of a menu track. You get to pick which type of aura you want, and you can keep improving that aura, or you can go back and learn a new aura and pick and choose between them as you go. Your web tracks, the ranger is a good example of that. It has some tracks where you can kind of pick and choose different options. It's kind of like a menu, but it's built tall instead of wide, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, let me just show you a visual. I think that I should have started there.
Whoa, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. That'll help with visualizing. So
Yeah, look at that martial arts track or the hunter track there.
yeah, martial arts
It's
is a perfect
all over
example
the
of a
place.
Wow.
webbed track. Yeah. So there's a lot of different paths you could take to reach the Meijin capstone down here. Same with the hunter track. You know, you'll eventually get to peerless hunter, but the way you get there is variable, as opposed to survivor, which is just like a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there are some hybrid tracks. I think the troubadour in particular is crazy. The jester and encore track overlap with one another at different points. So
That's pretty neat.
yeah, yeah.
So with you said that you can select abilities from different stacks. So like if I was a lore master, um, I could still go into Jester or Encore.
Yes. So if you we'll use the troubadour here as an example since we have it pulled up. Let's say at level 2, I enter into troubadour. I think our friend Roger is planning on doing that in MythCraft the podcast. So tune in to see his character get up to all kinds of antics. So let's say at level 3 he takes Lorist. That's that first ability or that first talent in the Lorist track.
Mm-hmm.
At level 4, he would have access to multi-talented, but if he wanted to, he could hop over and take Mockery or Troubadour support from the Jester and Encore track, or he could pop down and take Book of Legends from the Tomekeeper track. Or he might take a specialization talent or another class entry talent, which would open up more tracks for him to choose from. And let's see, I mentioned this in one of our other videos, but the last piece of kind of like the anatomy of a class here is the capstone abilities. And those are like really powerful talents that just offer a really flavorful and unique set of abilities that you get access to at earliest by level 17, usually between levels 20 and 25 based on kind of the route that your hero takes. So that would be like Anthem or Cruel Jape or Student of the Fundamental. These will be very powerful abilities, more than just your average talent. We'll look at some quick example of a capstone. Pick one that we didn't look at in a previous video. Grand Puppet Master. Here's a capstone. So this is a capstone for one of our witch tracks. And this particular witch track allows you to make like puppets that you can resemble other people with, and you can use it to kind of do sympathetic magic with them and manipulate them in various ways.
Nice.
Yeah, so this, if you have a doll of someone, you can always know their surface level thoughts and their deeper emotions and desires. Again, this is like a mid to high level ability, but you just always get that information about this person. And you can it makes it easier for you to use different like the possession spell and other abilities that you can use to interact with this character. So that's an example of a capstone. At level 30, all capstones have like an additional benefit. The trade-off is you can only ever achieve one capstone per character.
I see.
So yeah, you'll either have 0 or 1 over the course of your adventuring career with any given character.
Well, you only ever get to level 30, so I mean, to get to the bottom of one of those, you have to have quite an investment anyway.
Right. Yeah, I'm again, the earliest you could get one is level 17. I think that if you were to really squeeze it in there, if you went for 2 capstones within the same class, it's possible in terms of leveling that you might be able to get there by level 30, but it's still just like a requirement that you're only allowed to have one. So
I see.
yeah, I think there's one exception in the mage track, or in the mage class, which specifically overrides that. All right, let's just go through our classes here. We've got our Berserker. We'll start out with this one. So this is like just your brute force kind of primal rage character. Cody, you said you usually play, or this is one of the tropes kinds of characters you typically play?
Yeah, I'm usually either a barbarian or a warrior or something along those lines.
Okay.
And then
Excuse me.
Mal, you played Berserker in our little one shot we did, right?
I did, yeah. I played
Oh yeah,
Hanaya
that's
this
right.
one.
Yeah,
She
you
was a lot
played
of fun.
Hanaya Sharptooth. Yeah, that's this image here is of her.
Right.
Yeah, so the Berserker is fun. You can check out our upcoming combat video or our past character creation video to hear a little bit about action points. But the Berserker starts out at their class entry. They start out by getting a special action point called a rage action point, and that's just an extra action point they can spend on each of their turns in combat to make additional attacks. So um, the best defense is a strong offense, right? So they just rush
Sure.
in, destroy things. That's kind of their MO. The cleric, this is in almost every fantasy sci-fi game. This is your healer, your supporter. You might directly go into restoring a lot of hit points. You might go into treating diseases. There's some options in here for that. You could be more of a scholastic cleric, focus on kind of the theologian side of things. One of the fun things about this one is you can make icons. You can write icons on like pieces of wood or whatever, and pass them out to your friends and give them different kinds of buffs. And that's one track. Like you can't just do that at base level, but there's a lot of directions you can go with cleric. You can be kind of the traditional, like what you picture as a fantasy cleric, like the white crusader cloak with like the big shield. Like there, you can definitely build that as a cleric. You can also make a much more lightly armored, much more intellectual cleric as well. So fun options there. The mage, I love this art. This is such a good embodiment of Phineas.
Yeah.
Cody, did you played Phineas at one point, right?
Yeah, I was Phineas in that one shot, and then, I mean, I know Phineas personally from my time in exile where I met him.
Right. In the demi-plane exile, right? I'm
Yeah,
keeping my cosmology straight. Okay, yeah,
in hell.
right. Um, yeah, so your mage is just your typical like intellectual wizard who studies like arcane magic and becomes an expert in it. We will cover arcane magic as opposed to divine magic, which would be the cleric's chief like bread and butter. We'll cover that in our next tutorial video. So come back to learn more about the 5 sources of magic. I'll briefly mention when someone is a caster, I'll mention what source they use, but I'm not going to get too in depth about what that means until the next video. But the mage essentially has all kinds of fun ways they can manipulate arcane magic and achieve different outcomes with it. So, I mean, you can see from the names here, sorcery track, tome wizard track. These are in like 5th edition terms, it's somewhere between wizard and sorcerer because you've got like the meta magic aspect where you can really mess with the way things work, but you also have just that sheer like intellectual understanding of the topic that you're dealing with. The Oracle is a fun, unique class to Mythcraft, and this one actually has a fun backstory. It's the first class that I drafted, and it was so weak that
Oh,
I was so excited about it. I had all this lore ready, and I handed it over to Grant and Andy and Jake, and they were like, this sucks. Can't use this." And that was just such a letdown because I was so excited about this lore, but I sat with it for 6 to 8 weeks before I finally like came up with what it is now, which I think it holds its own with the other classes at this point. Hildegard will be an oracle in MythCraft the podcast, along with Friend the Golem, who's also going to be an oracle. So we are 1/3 of the party. So tune in to see 2 different types of oracles as we follow our own tracks. Hildegard's planning on going kind of the druid track, while friend, I think, is going to be an elementalist. So you'll see a couple different representations of the oracle there. Speaking of druid, Mal, you said you often play druids, right? That's one of your
Yeah.
go-tos. Okay.
Yeah, my first D&D character was a druid, so it's what I'm
Nice.
most familiar with.
Yeah. What circle did you play?
Circle of the Land, I believe. It was a while
Okay.
ago.
Yeah, that's like the more casty, spell casty side, right? Like you get access to a lot more spells.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I used to not really like the Circle of the Land because the Circle of the Moon is the one with all the fun animals, but
Right.
like I've seen some really good Circle of the Land builds, so I have more appreciation for it now.
My most recent druid was Circle of the Moon and Wild Shape.
Yeah.
It's just so cool.
It's really fun, yeah. And this oracle doesn't like our druid branch. You do have wild shape abilities, but they're not as combat focused as like the D&D Circle of the Moon. So, we'll have some kind of shapeshifter ability that's like more powerful at some point in the future. But the oracle's shape change capacity is more like scouting and things of that nature. Like turn into a squirrel. You're not really going to want to do that when you're fighting, but it's great for figuring out what's ahead while maintaining a low profile. The other fun thing about the Oracle is they use luck for their spellcasting score. So that leads to some really fun synergies as well.
Nice.
If you're curious about luck, look at our video where we talk about character creation. We get into luck a little bit more in that video. The Pugilist, I love the Pugilist. Cody loves the Pugilist. I think that it's just a really fun build. It's the just the straight up like unarmed hand-to-hand like combatant street fighter, that kind of thing. Old Man Harlow's a pugilist, right?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go martial artist, but there's a lot of good stuff in those other trees, and now that I know that I can go into them and not have to be exclusive, it's on.
Yeah.
It's on, man.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna dig in.
Yeah, this art here is of our legend Charlie Cobbler, who is loosely based on a famous superhero. Read his backstory, read some of his other stuff. I'm not gonna. I'll give you a hint that it's in the same like universe as what I'm representing. But he, I believe, I built him out to be pummeling and constitute. Like he split those two tracks. So yeah, Old Man Harlow could like focus martial arts and then dip into one of the other ones too.
Well, he has that one ability where it's like when you get hit, you can make a shield for how much you got hit for.
Oh yeah, ignore pain.
That ability is really tempting. I'm like, damn, I want that.
Yeah,
and it's not even that
really
deep
helpful.
of an investment.
Yeah, it's just if you invest a lot more deeply, I think you can use it once per recoup instead of once per take a rest or something like that. But yeah, a lot of the class tracks will have like a cool ability early on, like ignore pain, and then they'll have just like a more frequent or more powerful version of it at a later point. Yeah, the pugilist also has a lot of pugilist maneuvers, which are just ways that you can maybe like punch someone and then trip them, or the wrestling one has like the ability to suplex someone or get like a signature move like the people's elbow, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
So fun options there. The ranger, another legend that you have played, Cody. This is Grim.
I've played Grim a couple times now. He's a really cool dude.
Yeah, everyone loves Grim. I mean, he's a undead trollkin wielding a katana. Like, what's not to love? The ranger doesn't have to be magical. It's not intrinsically magical the way it is in a lot of games, but you certainly can go the magical route with it. I was just thinking about like Aragorn. I love Aragorn, and he does some things that one could consider magical, but you could also make the case for him just being like a really skilled non-magical ranger. Like contrast him with Arwen in the movies. I can't remember if Arwen is in the books or not. I've only read all the way through once. So truer nerds than I can tell you.
Sure.
But Arwen like has some magical abilities in the movie, and Aragorn is just more down to earth. Aside from being 86 and looking 40. Um, anyway, back on the topic of like the Mythcraft Ranger. You can lean into that like primal source of magic and cultivate that, or you can just focus on being a really good hunter. I think that's the track that Grim goes into early on. So he gets better with his katana, better with his short bow. So he's got some good versatility with ranged and melee. The survivor track here just lets you perform better in certain environments that you can pick as you develop your talents in that track. So you might start out just being really good in the forest or really good in like the desert, and then as you journey, you can pick other environments to perform well in. Rogue. Mal, you were also talking about really enjoying rogue builds, right?
Yes, yeah. My most recent D&D character is a rogue, and that's the first time I'd ever played one. And I hadn't really thought much of it until I started playing one, and it's quickly become one of my favorites. So I
Yeah,
might look into this for Thistle in the future.
yeah. I can definitely see that with Thistle. And what build did you go for in D&D?
It was a little homebrewed, so we ended up diving into some Shadow Realm stuff. So got
Okay,
some cool shadow magic things. We like
nice.
just got up to level 10 before the big bad evil guy of scheduling caught up to us. So
Oh yes, that eldritch beast catches everyone. Um, yeah, so I mean, as with the ranger, we've got a lot of the classic like tropes that you'll see in a lot of other games with the rogues. We've got your like social rogue who's good at talking their way into and out of all kinds of situations. We've got your sneaky edgelord rogue that lurks in the shadows of the rooftops and assassinates people. We do have a fun like psionic build in our base game here. So like I believe it's the soul knife in Tasha's. We've got something kind of like that. The side blade also just gives you a fun window into psionic magic. So if you kind of take some talents in rogue and some talents in psionics, you can get a really fun build there too. Um, and the stealth archer track down here is just like, it's not a full track, but it just gives you a couple different abilities that you can use to augment your roguish abilities. Tinkerer, of course, is fun. I also love this art of Ingrid. Um, Tinkerers are, as with rangers, tinkerers can be magical, but they don't have to be. I'm fascinated by characters that do magic-like things but aren't actually magical. This will be no surprise to those of you who have watched Power Word Veil. My first character is very much all about that. Miraz the Magnificent, the wizard extraordinaire who is secretly not actually a wizard at all. Um, does not know magic, can't cast a single cantrip. But so the Tinkerer is kind of like that. It's if you go, I believe the magic technician route, then you do gain access to magic. Otherwise, you can just like build things or deconstruct things and repurpose them for other inventions through like the inventor track. You can tinker with your armor and weapons through the augmenter track to gain more powerful abilities there. And the alchemist track is fun. It just lets you brew alchemical potions. I think alchemist fire, I think, is one of the first ones that you can get from that track. So um, yeah, just another fun class that can go a bunch of different directions. You can go like artillery, you can go support, you can go primarily social even, and just like open a shop of selling stuff that you found on adventures. You can go a lot of ways with
Right.
it. um, Troubadour is a classic. I love troubadours. I'm probably, although I haven't played one in the homebrew, I'm probably a bard main over the course of my like 5e career.
Sure.
um, but again, this won't surprise you. One of the things that I wanted to see with the troubadour or with the bard, something that I hadn't previously seen, was a way to play a non-magical bard. a troubadour who just recites poetry or inspires people through non-magical means. And so we made that here. And of course, you can go into magic. The Lorist track allows you to access arcane or psionic magic, and you can kind of pick or choose how you want that to manifest in your character concepts. But the Lorist, the Jester, and the Legend Keeper is special. I'll come back to that one. The Lorist and Jester are like your non-magical, like actual court jesters that you might have seen in like medieval Europe. The Encore track lets you focus on improving your base level like troubadour entry talent, which is it gives you access to stanzas, which are little like one action point things that you can do on each of your turns. You will definitely see Roger do them if you watch MythCraft the podcast, but they're almost like pick and choose non-magical cantrips, which is fun because then they work in like anti-magic fields and stuff like that. So there's some good interplay there. And Legend Keeper is the character that I've always wanted to play, that I never had like the way to build until I just made it for MythCraft. So the Legend Keeper allows you to draw characters out of a storybook and into real life. So there's obviously some magic there, because like you can't do that non-magically. But imagine, actually, I wasn't intending to do this, but I have it right here. So imagine I'm carrying the Iliad around, and I just pull Achilles out and have him go fight for me. Like that's
really cool.
Yeah, that's what the Legend Keeper does, and you get to pick which tome you have. So imagine playing a fantasy version of H.P. Lovecraft, and you're pulling all of these like eldritch beasts out of the book. Like there's ways to do all of that. The Vessel is your magic thief who uses occult magic to steal, borrow, barter, negotiate, run away with power that used to belong to gods or planar entities, and repurpose this magic into your own generally malicious devices. You can steal, like siphon essence out of things to heal yourself. It's kind of in general, I would say it's like a debuff support class. You create these like anti-auras that suppress your enemies, as opposed to the Zealot, which does positive auras for your allies. We'll get to the Zealot in a minute. But the Vessel leans into occult magic. It has a feature called a Cracked Soul, where if you get too far into the Vessel on any one of its tracks, you gain a significant amount of power, but you lose the ability to be resurrected because your own essence is just too messed up. And so if you die, you can't be brought back. Other beneficial things could happen, but you're not going to get resurrected. I think one of the capstones, I want to say, of the Soul Graft track, but I don't remember for sure. So it's somewhere in there. When you die, your essence hardens into a physical object that can be like a legendary sword or something. So your legacy can live on in some like really weird occult way like that. Warrior, Cody, your experience with warriors, is it just the build you usually play is kind of the upfront melee, or what talk me through?
Yeah, I mean, usually I play a big dude with like a great sword, or I mean, lately I've been more partial to sword and shield, but you know, usually I'm some sort of like either DPS or a tank or something along those lines.
Yeah. The warrior in MythCraft, you can go both directions really well. You can do like the great sword DPS build. There's also ample opportunity to play reactively on other people's turns, to intercept attacks, to step in front of your allies, and especially some really interesting like shield builds you can do, where if you take some of the shield specialization talents and mix and match them with the warrior, you can do a lot of really cool things. Tanner, he plays Friend the Golem. He's not playing a warrior in MythCraft the podcast, but in one of our earlier like unrecorded sessions, he played a warrior that he was a commander build, so he carried around this battle standard that he would plant in the ground, and it would offer buffs to allies that were close enough to the battle standard. So handful of different directions you can go with that. Also the archer I mentioned earlier, having that split track, a couple different options there. The witch, Mal, this would be the other class that is kind of like a D&D druid. Obviously, we don't have exactly a druid class, but the witch, especially if you go a primal witch, you can really lean into the like kind of nature spirit side of magic in MythCraft. So I would say actually, if you wanted like a circle of the land parallel, the witch is a really good way to go with that. You can lean into primal magic, you can lean into occult magic. You get the choice of either or with the witch. So you can be like the old lady making potions in the woods, or you can be like Scarlet Witch, and just like lean into like the dark hold and that kind of stuff. Make some potions. The Tinkerer and the Witch are the two that like let you make potions off the bat. So that's a fun mechanic. And our last one here is the Zealot, which is just like your crusading, uplifting, protecting. Like I said earlier, they do the auras that boost your allies as opposed to the vessel suppressing your enemies. You can bond with a mystic steed. I've mentioned Lord of the Rings by name already, so like Shadowfax, Gandalf might take a little dip to get that. You can like consecrate your sword, or it's called consecrate a blade. It doesn't have to be a sword. It can be whatever weapon you want, just to superpower one item, almost like Thor or Atreus from Power Word Fail. I might have gone Zealot so that I could power up my hammer.
Right.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, those are pretty much our 13 core classes. Cody and Mal, if you were a class in MythCraft, like you as a person, which one do you think you would be?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe the vessel.
The vessel?
I feel like I learned little bits here and there and take what I know and move it into the next thing. And, you know, I'm not really like, I'm not like college taught. I taught myself. I don't know how to explain it, but that's really what I kind of do. I kind of like, I'll learn something here. I'll take it over there.
Yeah.
Um,
Borrow some power from Cthulhu.
Right.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I'd probably be maybe on the Oracle side of things.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like I would definitely take advantage of the ability to be able to shapeshift into little creatures and just run off and do whatever. Just be
For
like,
sure.
no, I'm not going to do any human responsibilities today. I'm going to be a cat and I'm just going to take a really long nap.
Nice. I would also, just because you mentioned this, I can't remember if it was on air or not, but you have in the teens of pets. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, 19.
That's incredible.
That's
Yeah.
a lot.
Just a couple.
Yeah. I think I'd be the troubadour, just because again, I'm a writer. Troubadours tell stories. If I could have been born into a different era, I would have loved to have been a French troubadour, creating my own poetic forms and doing like poetry contests with other troubadours. It's just a fun time. Well, thank you, Mal. Thank you, Cody, for hanging out with me and talking through these classes. Everyone listening, I hope you have a great time crafting myths and playing all of these different classes. Pop into Discord and let us know what classes you like to main, what class you might be in real life. And we will see you in the next video to discuss our magic sources in more detail. See you then.